The U.S. Congress takes a hard line: no concessions, no negotiations. Trump launches a 100% tariff hike, Washington rolls out a price floor policy, and the EU moves in step with technology restrictions. Beijing's rare earth gambit backfires and supply chains accelerate desinicization. Foreign firms erupt in anger, only 19 approvals out of 141 applications, and they're asked to hand over design blueprints. With the US and Europe jointly encircling China, the CCP is beset by internal and external crises. How long can Beijing hold out in this high-stakes gamble? Don't miss the next drop. Subscribe and enable the bell. Beijing miscalculated again. This time, what it lost wasn't just the market, but the nation's fortunes. Latest, the US Congress issued tough talk, not a single step back toward the CCP. The Trump administration simultaneously launched a new round of 100% tariffs, while Beijing is still playing the rare earth card and trying to threaten the world with export controls. The result? Overnight, the rare earth war backfired. The US and Europe responded in concert. Beijing found itself surrounded. Trump smirked. He's having some issues. Many read this as Trump hinting Xi Jinping is in trouble. The CCP misjudged, its rare earth war backfires and burns Beijing. Xi Jinping has again misread Trump. Before rolling out new tariffs, the US Congress drew a red line: no concessions to the CCP, hardening Washington's stance. The Wall Street Journal reported on October 15th that, according to people close to CCP decision-making, she bet that the US economy couldn't withstand a protracted conflict with China's economy. Beijing believed an escalating trade war would tank markets, Trump's weak spot, forcing him to negotiate with Xi. Beijing kept escalating. On October 14th, it sanctioned the U.S. subsidiary of South Korean shipping firm Hanwha Ocean, triggering sharp volatility in U.S. markets on October 15th, before a partial afternoon rebound. The Economist noted that she sees escalation in the trade war as the path to victory. From maintaining peace to self-sabotage, Beijing announced new rare earth export restrictions, shocking global investors and governments. China's Ministry of Commerce claimed the limits, given rare earth's military uses, were to better maintain world peace. Western diplomats in Beijing called the claim utterly absurd, noting Ukraine is under attack by Russian drones and missiles containing Chinese-made components. Beijing brushed off such criticism. Xi's focus is winning the US-China confrontation, to which he devotes his full attention. Foreign firms furious, rare earth permits jammed. Beijing hasn't kept its promises. It said it would grant licenses to genuine end users, but since controls began in April, foreign companies have struggled to get approvals. According to the EU Chamber of Commerce in China, by early September, Beijing had approved just 19 of 141 applications from European firms. What enraged companies further? China has even demanded sensitive product design blueprints before considering permits. Beijing thought this would cement control over the rare earth supply chain. Instead, Western countries are accelerating diversification. Many nations are starting or restarting rare earth mining, expected to show results relatively soon. The process is polluting but not technically complex. As others cut reliance on China, its diplomatic clout as a green tech powerhouse could plunge. These controlled minerals are ubiquitous in low-carbon technologies, from wind turbines to batteries. By weaponizing green tech as leverage, Beijing is turning its mildest exports into tools of coercion. Xi aims to prove his East rising, West declining narrative. In his view, Trump speaks bluntly, whereas Xi, honed by the CCP's dark power struggles, plays the long game. Take the rare earth war. After Trump announced 100% tariffs, he still called Xi a friend. On October 14th, asked at the White House about trade disputes with China, Trump said, "I have a good relationship with President Xi, but he can be a little temperamental." Regarding China's rare earth monopoly, Trump unveiled countermeasures. The U.S. counters, setting price floors. U.S. Treasury Secretary Bessent said in a CNBC exclusive on October 15th that the Trump administration plans to set price floors across several key industries to counter Beijing's long-standing price manipulation that distorts global markets. Bessent noted that over the past 2 decades, China has used its dominance in rare earth refining and processing to push prices down, crushing foreign competitors and forcing exits. At Washington's Invest in America forum, Bessent told Sarah Eisen, "When you're dealing with a non-market economy like China, you must use industrial policy. We'll establish price floors and use forward buying to ensure this doesn't happen again." She added the plan covers multiple strategic sectors, not just rare earths. Rare earth magnets are integral to U.S. military systems, including the F-35 stealth fighter and Tomahawk cruise missiles. In civilian tech, rare earths are critical for EVs and wind power. To reduce reliance on China, the administration is rapidly building a domestic rare earth supply chain. In July, the War Department struck a landmark deal with MP Materials, including a government equity stake, price floor guarantees, and a long-term offtake agreement. Given Beijing's restrictions, the US may take equity stakes in more critical mineral firms to secure strategic resources, Besant told CNBC. China's latest moves remind us the US must have independent supply capacity, or at least secure supply with allies. Xi's fatal misread of Trump. To Xi, Trump is a businessman and political novice. During Trump's first term, a senior CCP official said Trump only cared about business and political interests and was hijacked by anti-China hawks. Peking University's Jia Qingguo once argued Trump's de-emphasis on ideology left room for pragmatic deals, but she misjudged Trump, believing that brandishing the rare earth card again would panic him. Trump was indeed enraged by Beijing's escalated controls, calling them foolish. Not only would China collapse into a depression, it would try to drag the world down with it. Evidence, he said, of Beijing's panic. Trump added she had had a bad moment and said he didn't want to see China fall into depression. Taiwanese macroeconomist Wu Jialong said she misjudged Trump in two ways, seeing Trump as just a businessman. In Wu's view, Trump is 70% soldier, 30% businessman, led by a soldier's sense of national interest and responsibility, strategic vision paired with a businessman's negotiating tactics, assuming Trump is desperate for a deal. She likes to squeeze one more concession, assuming Trump needs an agreement and will ultimately yield, so she could prove to party insiders he can handle Trump. But Trump's negotiations are a system. Either reach a deal, Plan A, or break talks to execute Plan B. He is not desperate. Wu argues Trump knows negotiating with Xi won't solve the core problems. The CCP's bandit or rogue instincts mean talks may not enter an agreement. If signed, it might not be implemented, or only briefly and perfunctorily. So Trump poses for talks, mainly to show US business he tried before, and that Beijing is unreasonable. US business now seems aligned with national security strategy. Thus, Trump isn't rushing a deal. He's not even invested in talks per se. He's ready for breakdown, then an immediate hard turn. Beijing failed to see this. Evidence, Wu says, that she lacks competent counsel. For now, it's not yet time to openly break with Xi. Trump is still playing cat and mouse. Trump tightens the net. On October 14th via Truth Social, Trump wrote, "China is deliberately not buying our soybeans, making it hard on our soybean farmers. I consider that economic hostility. In response, we're considering ending trade with China on edible oils and other items. We can produce edible oils ourselves, no need to buy from China." He's step-by-step boxing Beijing in a turtle in a jar. His warning to Argentina showed this. On October 14th at the White House, Trump told President Javier Milei that Argentina may trade with China, but absolutely must not go beyond trade, especially on military cooperation. If it does, he'll be very unhappy. Washington opposes any CCP military activity in South America. Last week, the US announced a $20 billion aid package for Argentina's currency and economy. Besant said U.S. support isn't conditioned on ending Argentina's currency swap with China. Washington's concerns center on ports, military bases, and observation facilities, pointing to the CCP's space tracking station in Patagonia. The EU strikes back, tit for tat. Trump's stance has clarified the CCP's duplicity for U.S. citizens and businesses, and pushed Europe to move in tandem. German Foreign Minister Johann Wadeful said on October 14th in Berlin's Sino-German Center, "China and Russia are trying to rewrite the international order based on law." He said Beijing claims to defend multilateralism but tolerates North Korea's sanctions evasion and ignores maritime law in the South China Sea. He further accused Beijing of supporting Russia's war on Ukraine. Beijing keeps Russia's war machine running. Wadeful added that the PLA's deployments around Japan and in the Taiwan Strait have surged, a threat not only to Indo-Pacific security but to the entire rules-based order. As he condemned Beijing, the EU considered reciprocal measures mirroring China's playbook, forced tech transfer tied to Chinese investment. EU Trade Commissioner and Denmark's foreign minister said the EU is studying preconditions for Chinese investments, technology and know-how transfer among them, to bolster European industry. Bloomberg quoted sources saying targeted areas include key digital industries and manufacturing like autos and batteries. The EU would also require investors to use a set share of EU goods or labor and add value within the EU. While technically applying to all non-EU companies, the rules, expected in November, aim to prevent Chinese manufacturing strength from crushing European industry. Reuters reported the Commission is set to present a comprehensive proposal by year-end. China's economy, internal and external woes, data scraping bottom. She hopes rare earth warfare will cripple the US and world economies. Yet China's own economy is shrouded in gloom. Rare earth exports fell 31% in September, the result of tightened reviews and longer approval cycles. Earlier, magnet exports plunged in April-May, recovered in June-August. Detailed September magnet data will arrive later this month. Producer prices, PPI, have fallen for 3 straight years, highlighting persistent deflation and weak domestic demand. On October 15th, the Statistics Bureau said PPI fell 2.3% yo. Since October 2022, PPI has stayed in contraction, suggesting Beijing's efforts to curb vicious price competition have struggled. Meanwhile, CPI was minus 0.3% YOY, slightly better than August's minus 0.4%, dragged by falling pork and fresh vegetable prices. Huang Zichuan of Capital Economics wrote, "This mainly reflects localized effects of surging gold prices and distortions from trade and policies on consumer pricing." Raymond Young of ANZ said PPI better reflects reality than CPI, as CPI components like gasoline are tightly regulated. Huang expects that with insufficient demand-side support, CPI and PPI will remain in deflation this year and next. Bottom line, Beijing's rare earth gambit has boomeranged. The US is setting price floors, building domestic capacity, and rallying allies. Europe is exploring reciprocal constraints and tech transfer conditions. Foreign firms are stonewalled in China, 19 approvals out of 141 in demands for design blueprints, accelerating de-risking and supply chain diversification. The wager is on, but the clock is ticking. How long can Beijing hold?